Baris Arduc walks away. Elcin Sangu left heartbroken. What began as Turkey's most beloved on-screen romance would eventually unravel into one of the most devastating heartbreaks the country's entertainment industry had ever witnessed. For years, fans believed they were watching a real-life fairy tale unfold. Two of Turkey's biggest stars, undeniable chemistry, endless public appearances together, and a love story that seemed destined for forever. But behind the carefully curated Instagram posts and red carpet smiles, something was quietly falling apart. And when Baris Arduc finally walked away, the fallout would leave Elcin Sangu facing questions she never thought she'd have to answer, publicly, painfully, and completely alone. This is the story of how Turkey's golden couple went from inseparable to unrecognizable. And the truth behind what really happened is far more complicated than anyone imagined. To understand how everything collapsed, you have to go back to where it all started. 2015, the set of Kiralik Ask, or Love for Rent, a romantic comedy that would become one of the most watched Turkish series of the decade. Baris Arduc and Elcin Sangu were cast as the leads, playing two people who enter a fake relationship that slowly becomes real. And according to everyone on set, the chemistry wasn't just acting. Crew members would later describe moments between takes where Baris and Elcin seemed completely lost in each other, the kind of energy that doesn't come from a script. Directors noticed it, co-stars noticed it, and very quickly, millions of fans noticed it too. Social media exploded with fan pages dedicated to the pair. Hashtags like #Barsin and #ElBar trended weekly. Fans dissected every interview, every glance, every smile. They weren't just shipping fictional characters anymore, they were shipping the actors themselves. But here's where things get complicated. Neither Baris nor Elcin ever publicly confirmed a relationship. In interviews, they were polite, professional, even playful, but never definitive. Baris would smile and dodge the question. Elcin would laugh it off with a vague answer. It became a game, almost, a mystery that only made fans more obsessed. And for years, that ambiguity worked in their favor. But behind the scenes, sources close to the actors began hinting at something deeper. According to reports from Turkish tabloids, Baris and Elcin did quietly date during and after Kiralik Ask. Nothing official, nothing announced, just two people navigating an intense connection while the entire country watched their every move. Friends of the pair allegedly described their relationship as passionate but complicated. Both were at pivotal points in their careers. Both were being offered major roles. Both were under immense pressure to maintain their public images. And that pressure, insiders claim, began to create cracks. Elcin Sangu was reportedly more private, more cautious about going public. She'd seen how quickly the media could turn on celebrity couples, how a single rumor could dominate headlines for months. She wanted to protect what they had. Baris, on the other hand, was allegedly more relaxed about public perception. He wasn't pushing for a big announcement, but he also wasn't as concerned about speculation. To him, the relationship was personal, not a brand. That difference in approach, according to those close to them, became a recurring point of tension. And then came the first public sign that something was shifting. 2017. Baris Arduc begins appearing more frequently with Gupse Ose, a well-known actress, comedian, and screenwriter. At first, fans dismissed it. Baris and Gupse had been friends for years. They'd worked together, they had mutual circles. There was nothing unusual about them being photographed together, but then the sightings became more frequent. Dinners, events, vacations. And unlike his carefully ambiguous approach with Elcin, Baris didn't seem to be hiding anything with Gupse. The internet started to spiral. Fan pages that had spent years celebrating Baris and Elcin's relationship were now flooded with confusion and anger. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. Some fans defended Baris, insisting he and Elcin were never officially together. Others accused him of betrayal, of leading Elcin on, of breaking her heart in public. And through it all, Elcin stayed silent. She didn't address the rumors, didn't post cryptic messages, didn't give interviews about her personal life. She simply continued working, posting occasional behind-the-scenes photos, and maintaining the same polished, professional image she always had. But people who knew her noticed a shift. According to close friends who spoke to Turkish media outlets, Elcin was devastated. Not because Baris had moved on, but because of how publicly it was happening. The constant comparisons, the endless speculation, the photos of Baris and Gupsy looking happy while her own name was dragged through think pieces and gossip columns. She reportedly confided in friends that she felt like she was grieving a relationship the public never even knew existed. And worse, she was expected to do it with grace, with silence, with a smile. One source close to Elcin allegedly told a reporter she loved him, really loved him. And watching him fall in love with someone else while the world watched her reaction, that's a kind of heartbreak most people can't imagine. But the situation was about to get even more complicated. In 2018, Baris Arduc and Gupsy Oze went public with their relationship. And not just public, official. Red carpets together, matching Instagram posts, public declarations of affection. Everything that fans had once hoped to see between Baris and Elcin was now playing out with someone else. The internet exploded. Fan pages shut down, comment sections filled with heartbreak, anger, and betrayal. Some fans accused Baris of using Elcin for publicity and then discarding her. Others accused Elcin of playing the victim when there was never an official relationship to begin with. Turkish tabloids ran headlines like, "Baris Arduc moves on. Elcin Sangu left behind." The real reason Baris chose Gupsy over Elcin. Elcin Sangu's silent heartbreak. And still, Elcin said nothing. She continued working, continued posting, continued showing up to events looking flawless and composed. But those close to her told a different story. Reports surfaced that Elcin had begun declining joint interviews or events where Baris might appear, that she'd quietly unfollowed certain mutual friends on social media, that she'd started focusing almost obsessively on her career, taking on back-to-back projects to avoid being home alone with her thoughts. One entertainment journalist later wrote, "Elcin Sangu became a masterclass in public resilience, but anyone paying close attention could see the cost." And then, just when the dust seemed to be settling, came the engagement announcement. July 2020. Baris Arduc proposed to Gupsy Oze. The photos were stunning. A romantic setup, a gorgeous ring, Gupsy glowing with happiness, Baris looking completely in love. And for Elcin's fans, it felt like the final, crushing confirmation that the fairy tale was truly over. Social media went into mourning. Tribute videos to Baris and Elcin's Kiralik Ask days flooded YouTube and TikTok. Fans posted old interviews, old photos, old moments where it seemed impossible that they weren't meant to be together. But this time, something unexpected happened. Elcin Sangu posted a photo on Instagram, a simple, elegant shot of herself looking radiant and strong, with a caption that roughly translated to, "The best chapters are still being written." It wasn't a dig, wasn't bitter, wasn't even sad. It was powerful, and fans rallied. Comments poured in by the thousands. Messages of support, admiration, love. People praised her for handling the situation with dignity, for refusing to be defined by heartbreak, for choosing herself. But behind that carefully crafted post, sources say, the reality was far more fragile. According to those close to Elcin, the engagement hit harder than she expected. She'd told herself she was over it, that she'd moved on, that Baris's relationship with Gupsy was no longer her concern. But seeing that ring, that happiness, that finality, it brought everything back. Friends reportedly described her as withdrawn during that time. She threw herself into work, taking on a new series, Bir Ask Hikayesi, where ironically she played a woman navigating love and loss. Co-stars later said that Elcin brought an emotional depth to the role that felt almost uncomfortably real. Some scenes, they admitted, felt less like acting and more like watching someone process grief in real time. And then came the wedding. 2021. Baris Arduc and Gupsy Oze got married in an intimate, beautiful ceremony. The photos were everywhere. Turkish media covered every detail. The dress, the venue, the vows, the first dance. It was everything a celebrity wedding should be. Romantic, elegant, and highly publicized. And once again, all eyes turned to Elcin Sangu. Would she comment? Would she post? Would she finally break her silence? She did none of those things. Instead, she was photographed on set, working, smiling with co-stars, posting about upcoming projects, living her life as if the wedding wasn't happening at all. And that silence, fans said, spoke louder than any statement ever could. But while Elcin maintained her composure publicly, sources claim the private toll was devastating. People close to Elcin told Turkish outlets that she'd begun therapy around this time, not because she was falling apart, but because she was determined not to. She reportedly spoke openly with her therapist about the unique pain of losing someone in public, about being expected to perform strength while privately grieving, about the unfairness of being compared to another woman she'd never even met. One friend allegedly said, Elcin wasn't heartbroken because she wanted Baris back. She was heartbroken because she felt like she'd lost a version of herself she'd never get back. And that, perhaps, is the part of this story that gets overlooked. Because while the tabloids focused on the love triangle, the real story was about a woman rediscovering who she was outside of someone else's narrative. As the months passed, something shifted. Elcin Sangu began taking control of her own story. She launched a skincare line, took on more challenging roles, started speaking more openly in interviews, not about Baris, but about self-worth, independence, and resilience. In one particularly powerful interview, she said, "People think heartbreak is about losing someone, but sometimes it's about finding yourself." Fans noticed the change. The comments shifted from sympathy to admiration. Elcin wasn't being pitied anymore. She was being celebrated. She became a symbol of grace under pressure, of moving forward without bitterness, of refusing to let someone else's happiness dim your own. But even as her public image soared, questions remained. Did Baris and Elcin ever truly date? Or was it all just fan speculation? To this day, neither has given a definitive answer. Baris, in rare interviews about his past, has always been respectful, but vague. He's described Elcin as a wonderful person, and their time on Kiralik Ask as special, but he's never confirmed or denied a romantic relationship. Elcin, similarly, has kept her cards close. She's praised Baris as a co-star and wished him well, but she's never publicly discussed whether they were together. And maybe that ambiguity is the point, because the truth is, the story of Baris and Elcin was never really about what happened between them. It was about what the public wanted to believe, what fans projected, what the media spun, and in the end, both of them became characters in a narrative they never fully controlled. Today, Baris Arduc is happily married to Gupsi Oze. They're expecting their first child, and by all accounts, they're thriving. Elcin Sangu, meanwhile, has become one of Turkey's most respected actresses. She's selective about her roles, fiercely protective of her privacy, and unapologetically focused on her own happiness. She's been linked to a few people over the years, but she's never confirmed anything. And honestly, she doesn't owe anyone an explanation, because the real ending to this story isn't about who Baris chose or who Elcin lost. It's about a woman who was expected to crumble and instead chose to rise. But here's the thing that still haunts fans. Every now and then, an old interview resurfaces. A clip from Kiralik Ask. A behind-the-scenes moment where Baris and Elcin look at each other in a way that feels impossible to fake. And people wonder, what if things had been different? What if the timing had been right? What if they'd chosen each other instead of their careers, their privacy, their fears? We'll never know. And maybe that's the most heartbreaking part of all. Because in the end, Baris Arduc didn't just walk away from Elcin Sangu. He walked away from a story millions of people believed in. A love that felt destined. A connection that seemed unbreakable. And Elcin, she didn't just survive the heartbreak. She rewrote the ending. For two people who once seemed inseparable, their lives have taken completely different paths. And while fans may never get the closure they crave, one thing is certain. Both Baris and Elcin are exactly where they're meant to be, even if it's not together. And sometimes, that's the bravest kind of love story there is.